And I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Smith to explain some of the logistics of how this technology works.
All right, so first things first, I am going to mute everybody. Okay. Just in order to make this all work, I have everyone's microphones muted, and board members, what I would say is if you look at the, I think it's lower left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a little microphone button. When you're ready to speak, you can just unmute that. If you need help, I can unmute you, and then we'll just begin the conversation that way. Having people's microphones muted just makes the sound easier, especially since we have so many different people on. And what happens is, people's microphones are sensitive, so it picks up background noise, and it can just be disruptive to the meeting. So we'll proceed that way. I'll go ahead and actually, I'm going to unmute you, Debbie. I'll unmute Glenn, unmute Ruth, so that way you guys are all set. I'll unmute Mandy and Jen. And then from my computer also, I am recording this meeting. So we will take the recording and we'll post it to our website afterwards. Okay. Who else? Good. Okay, so we'll give it a shot. It looks like we have quite a few people here. The purpose of tonight's special meeting is just to provide the board some updates. The probably chunk of the agenda will spend just doing the e-learning plan update, and what I would propose is that we'll have our central office folks start. So Chuck, Andrea, Fran, and then we'll pass it over to each of our building principals to provide an update in turn. And then the third item, agenda item, is just a bit of a conversation about the calendar, where we are. So Debbie, you want to go ahead and start with some introductory comments?
Sure. Thanks, Kevin. I already shared this with you, but I learned just a bit ago about the first death in Connecticut from COVID-19. So I know I speak for the board and the whole school community in sending our sympathies and condolences to the man's family. We're reminded, of course, about how we're all responsible to help slow this virus. So that's why we're holding our first virtual Board of Ed meeting. Thanks to everyone who's attending, the staff, and also the public. This is new to many of us, so please be patient as some of us might stumble through a bit of it. This is also a special Board of Ed meeting, not only because of its format, but because it's not a regularly scheduled meeting. So it's got a very focused agenda, and there is no spot for public comment. As we get into the future and in future meetings that are regularly scheduled, we will try to figure out technology to allow for that. But tonight, because it is a special meeting, we typically don't have public comment. That's not to say that if you, the public, please continue to email any of the staff, email the Board of Ed, the principals, the teachers. We all know we have questions and concerns during this period. So the more communication, the better. Why don't we just go ahead and begin? I remembered last week, it seems like a month ago, even though it was just last week, that I thanked a lot of people, such as the health department and the first select woman, the local press, the Wilton Youth Council, and all those thanks are just reiterated again this week. And most importantly, our families and our students. I think they've been tremendous. I think Kevin referenced it last week, but there's all these 21st century skills, resilience, patience, collaboration, creativity, perseverance. So it's all certainly right upon us. So thanks to everyone for rising to the occasion. And none of this would be possible without our staff. And so thanks so much to Superintendent Smith and his leadership team, the principals, and all the teachers. So we are charting new territory, as everyone has been saying recently. So let's get down to hearing more about what it's all looking like and what we can talk about as we move through this together. So thanks again, and Kevin, I'll turn it back to you.
Terrific. So a couple of things. We'll just start with the first agenda item, the field trip update. While it's disappointing, it shouldn't come as a surprise at this point, but we have canceled both the trip to Paris as well as the trip to Costa Rica. To the best of my understanding, parents who were paying for the Paris trip will be able to get a full refund. The two high school teachers who were facilitating the Costa Rica trip felt very confident that parents who had made down payments for that trip should be able to get all or most of their money back. At this point, it sounded like all they had paid for was airfare. And so they'd also done some fundraising. And so if parents weren't able to recover all their money through a full refund, the fundraising would cover the cost. So those two folks felt confident that people should be safe that way. We've also, there was a music trip from the high school. I think they were planned to go to Boston in April. So that trip has also been canceled. We're going to cancel all trips through April, and then we'll look at what was on the schedule for May and June. And if things continue to move as they are, we can anticipate those trips will be canceled as well. But we're going to give ourselves just a bit more time before we do that. Any question on the field trips?
Nope.
No.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to provide some broad general updates, and then we'll get right into the e-learning plan with the rest of our leadership team. So first, I want to just echo what Debbie said, and really take a hat off to all of our staff who have been tremendous in ramping up efforts to support students and families. Just looking at who's on the call tonight, we have a few of them, a number of our teachers. Lena Rosenberg's on. I saw Anastasia a minute ago. We just have an unbelievable staff, and man alive, have they, exceeded expectations as they always do. But they just stepped up immediately and are hard at work, and have been and will continue to be in providing a really great educational experience in this very new format for all of us. So you'll hear a lot more in a moment from Chuck, Fran, Andrea, and the principals on what's happening, but just know that I have complete confidence in our staff that we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that our students have really meaningful experiences during this time. I also want to recognize Chris Burney, Jose Figueroa, our maintenance staff, which includes Matt Corcoran, Ramon Martinez, Mark Esposito, who are not only busy supporting the custodians conducting the deep cleaning of our facilities, they're also supporting the town of Wilton in addressing the town facilities, and they're also busy making deliveries to homes so we can provide various pieces of technology so our students can access digital materials. This is absolutely an all hands on deck moment, and like our teachers, the rest of our staff is stepping right up and doing whatever they can to pitch in. So just broadly, for the purpose of providing a general update, as hopefully everybody's aware at this point, the commissioner has eliminated the 180-day waiver requirement and directed school districts to move forward with distance learning plans. His directive was to focus on students and to do the best we're able to do for all of our students. Consequently, we're able to stick to our original calendar. We're able to bring all of our teachers back to work, and we don't need to implement our previous MOU with the WEA. So that we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but the $160,000 that the board approved when last it met to cover stipends, we can redeploy those funds in other ways, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. We've surveyed families who are eligible for free and reduced meals and have a number to whom we will be providing lunches. In tonight's parent and community communication that went out, we're asking to see if we have other families that may be experiencing hardship, and if we can provide those families lunches, we'll do that as well. Chartwells will be working out of the Middlebrook kitchen making lunches, and then we'll have a plan to deliver those. I have a call after this meeting tonight to just finalize those logistics. Other than essential services like providing lunches and having select staff gain access to the business office to manage payroll and AP, we're following our town health director and district medical advisors' advice to restrict all other access to our buildings at this time. So what that means for the time being is staff and students will not be able to get materials that are currently in the buildings. We had a couple of questions over the last couple of days. For example, we have lots of music instruments that are in some of the band rooms, and there was a desire on the part of many to try to get in there and find a way to distribute those. The advice right now is don't do that. Just stay away, leave everything where it is, and try to come up with a workaround. So we're going to take that advice, and if the advice changes, then we'll moderate accordingly. So we're also on the budget front. We're in the process of reviewing our budget to get a clearer sense of what we are and are not spending money on as a result of the closure. It's my recommendation that we make available a portion of the $160,000 that was authorized last week for instructional materials, and then reserve the remainder of that to address potential special education compensatory costs. So we can, when we get to Andre's update, we can talk a little bit about that. And just some updates on staffing. You know, as we've talked about already, our staff entirely is mobilized to rise to this unprecedented occasion. They're working hard to meet the needs of our students and families. We are working collaboratively with all of our bargaining units to ensure that our work continues, albeit it's virtual in just about every case. In terms of the administrators, they're working hard, continuing to lead our district efforts and respond to families remotely. And then our UPSU staff, secretaries, college and career resource, business office paras, and so on, they're all working from home, and we're working collaboratively to find ways to bring them all back to work. And then, as you know, our custodial staff's been hard at work in the buildings following their deep cleaning protocols. So we're going to continue to find ways to try to bring hopefully everybody back to work, but at least as many as absolutely possible. On that note, any questions on anything I've shared? That's quite a bit of information so far.
Yeah, it's a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, but I think that's what you guys have been dealing with. So thanks for that update. And I guess we're really sort of anxious to get a sense of what the school day looks like at the different levels. And if I heard you correctly, the commissioner's newer letter really changed the whole kind of ball game, in that we can count our online experiences starting from day one.
That's correct.
As a school day, so that would be Monday, which is great news. And that as we may take a few days to kind of warm up to full speed, full strength. So I think that's what we need to hear probably most about.
Yep,
Thanks.
That's right. So we're ready. I'll turn it over to Chuck and Fran and Andre and the principals at this point. Chuck, you want to start?
Hey, Kevin, it's Mandy. Quick question.
Sure.
The Thursday, Friday that we took off last Thursday, Friday, do those count as snow days, or will those count as?
Yeah, they were really, you know, my advice would be to count those as snow days. I mean, we were out, we weren't working, we weren't expecting students to learn either.
Okay, perfect. I'm just trying to keep track of the calendar.
Sure.
That's it.
Great. All right, go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. It's nice to see all of you. Seems like it's been a while. You know, I just wanted to start by echoing what Kevin said. I think we should all feel very lucky to have such a dedicated group of professionals working on behalf of our students. You know, I just want you to know that the teachers, the administrators, our coaches, the coordinators, our LLC staff, and many, many others have been working so incredibly hard over the past few days. And they've been so patient and so flexible under these rather, I think, extraordinary circumstances. You know, to be honest with you, without their support and their commitment, you know, both to our kids and to each other, I don't know how we would have been able to pull this plan together in such a short period of time. So my colleagues and I are going to walk you through an overview of the plan in just a few minutes, but I wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you before we begin. First, I think it's important to understand that our goal this week has been to really just get teachers and students used to the new learning environment. using the new tools and establishing new routines. Sorry, my printer's going off. We just wanted to make sure that everyone was in a place cognitively and emotionally that they're ready for a more rigorous curriculum. And fortunately, the feedback that I've gotten so far has been very positive. So as we move forward in the coming weeks, we'll begin to very gradually ramp up the, I'm sorry, let me just turn the printer off. I do apologize. Many of us are home working. So again, as we move forward in the coming weeks, we're going to gradually ramp up the rigor of the curriculum and try to move the curriculum forward. And I want to emphasize very strongly that it's going to be gradual. Both our teachers and students need some time to figure out how this can work in the best way possible. And we have a lot to consider and to work on. We have to think about the availability of students and our teachers given their particular circumstances at home. We have to think about the accessibility of technology. We have to think about how comfortable our teachers and our students are with using some new tools, at least to the extent that we're asking them to use it now. And what's important to me is that we have a lot of work to do around figuring out how to compact the curriculum, which means basically identifying what the major work of each grade level is and each subject area is, so that we can make sure that our students are ready for next year. I know we're all very preoccupied right now with the immediacy of the demands of being, social distancing, but we do need to think about the long-term impacts this has for our students and for our curriculum. And that's going to bring us into some thorny issues around assessment and grading in an online environment. And of course, we have to think very carefully about how we can provide specialized supports and services to our students with high needs. Even something as simple as taking attendance has become much more complex and nuanced than you can imagine. But I'm confident that we're going to continue to support each other and that we're going to try to make the best of this very difficult and challenging situation. And finally, the last thing I wanted to say is that what you're going to hear tonight is our best thinking at this time, given the information that we currently have. It seems like things are changing rapidly every day. And so I think it's reasonable to expect that our thinking may change. But we're committed to making sure that we are keeping everybody up to date on anything that does change. And I do want to give a shout out to my colleagues, particularly Maria and the principals, for really doing an amazing job trying to make sure that everybody was as up to date as possible. I can't tell you how many hours Maria has put into the communication that's been going out on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Fran and the principals to kind of go through, what the plan looks in detail. Fran, do you want to start?
Sure. So good evening, everyone. And, this is something that is, we hear unprecedented and uncharted territory. And it is something that has evolved so quickly. I can tell you that from my own experience, the past day seems like way more than 24 hours. And every time I look at which day is it that I'm in, it seems like, it's not even real. So I think we have to start by reflecting on what has happened in the last 7 days, which is really only 4 school days. We presented a plan to the Board of Education not even a week ago. And it was a plan at the time that was our best thinking, and that really did put what we knew at the time at the forefront. And some of us are calling it the e-learning plan 1.0. And you may hear about e-learning plan 2.0 or even 3.0. There are districts that call it remote learning or distance learning. But by the end of this, really it's about learning. So at whatever phase we are into this plan, it has been already about learning, and it's been about community. And I think that's really the most important part of this. I said last week that we talk about modern learning and what that's about, and what our society is about is this thing called VUCA, which means that things are volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I can't think of any other time where that is absolutely the truth. But what VUCA really requires is a systematic exercise of humanity. And that's where it starts first. It starts with our teachers, our students, and putting everybody first. And I think that's what this week was about. It's really about making sure that we've got things in place to support our teachers, to support our families, to make sure that our students are going to be okay, because this is a different kind of situation, as we all know. So this is what we've done up until now this week. We've made sure that we've had access to devices. So there was a survey that went out last week asking families that didn't have enough devices or a device at home to let us know. We received 124 requests from families. On Wednesday when we closed, we had actually delivered about half of those. And in the meantime, we've been continuing to deliver the rest. But I just want to give you this as one example of how everybody has come together and how incredible everyone has been. So in order to get devices into the hands of students after we were closed, and when we really didn't want students or families to have to come to the buildings, we had Lucille, who worked with Lori Getner and Helene Walker on the master spreadsheets. Maria coordinated with all of the staff. We had Fran Williams putting together an actual map of where the route might be. We had Jose actually hand delivering all of the devices. We had Eric and his IT staff making sure that the devices were found and set up, and serial numbers all put into place. So every time we do any one of these things, the actual involvement is massive, and it really takes everybody to actually put it together, to coordinate it. So that was one. The second part of this is that we felt that there needed to be an access to support and technical support for sure. So we had our LLC team, which I can't thank enough. They have been absolutely beyond words on it and working very, very hard in terms of making sure that things work at the school level for teachers, for students, for families. So we had a tech help support system put into place that is also a form on our e-learning plan website. And they've received those requests, and they have been either through email or getting onto Google Hangout and or even a phone call and working through things with people. In addition to that, we've been trying to get resources that would be, in keeping with what Chuck was talking about with curriculum, and to make sure that our units that are coming up, that we're ramping up to have e-resources that we may have originally had physical, whether it be books or materials that we would have used with students, that we now are trying to find the right e-resources to meet those needs of our curriculum. So as you can tell, we have upgraded to the Zoom web conferencing. A lot of tech ed mentors have been wonderful about, in a sense, coming to and rallying around schools and districts to help us. So Zoom offered us a free service. However, in order to get it up and running, it took several days, and it took our IT staff and people being on the phone in terms of support for many, many hours, but we've got it up and going, and it's something that's available. In addition to that, we've upgraded lots of licenses, from Lexia, which is for reading comprehension, to Nusella, which provides collections of units and level text sets, to Nearpod, to Google Meet, and I can go on and on. We've been doing this as we've been going along. I had several requests today for specific resources that will help our music teachers, our art teachers, and it goes on and on. In addition to that, we've made sure that we can meet the needs of the professional learning that's needed or the training that's needed by our teachers to actually work in this new environment, which, includes being able to set up a Google Classroom, being able to manage it, being able to use Google Meet, being able to use a lot of these video instructional type tools, being able to create a mini lesson, record themselves, and being able to add questions. There are many, many different things that we're translating from what has been physical to now what is now online. So things that are normally done in managing a classroom, engaging students, ensuring that they're learning what they're learning, all are basically technology type skills when you go into the online part of it. And we launched an professional learning tool, which is a self-directed tool today. And our teachers, I can't even tell you, so many of them were on for large parts of the day and working through and sending me emails, asking questions. Everybody's engaged. And I can give you just some stats from our digital dashboard, because I've been actually monitoring it for several months. And I looked at the last 3 months, and I looked at the last 24 hours. And in the last 3 months, we had top 10 tools, and we had what was being used. In the last 24 hours, we've had almost as many educators and students engaged as we did in the past 3 months. Also, in the top 10, what used to be things like Wikipedia have fallen off. And we now have things like Google Sites, Google Forms for analysis. We have had Nucella been driven up to like number 3 or 4 tool being used. And we can see that already in a very, very short period of time, students are engaged. And this is very impressive when we look at the fact that we just launched this. It's only been 2 days. So from my point, I really just want to thank everyone for the collaboration. It's a tough time. It's very anxiety provoking. And I think that our staff, our administrators, everybody around us has been wonderful about making sure that people feel a little bit more at ease. The routine is coming back, the normalcy, and moving on with the curriculum and the learning. As I said, we're going to take the E out of the e-learning plan. It's going to be just a learning plan. So thank you all. And if you have any questions, let me know.
I do. It's Gretchen.
Hi, Gretchen.
So as a parent, and maybe this is changing a little bit now because all the teachers are back on board, but now that our kids are home, how I understand that we need to log into their Google Classroom to understand what the assignments are. I just want to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing. And I understand now that I need to go on under my daughter's logins to figure that out. I don't expect the teachers to be babysitting them, but I think I'm speaking for most of the parents here that how do we know what's getting done? And is that the only way that we're going to be able to do that?
So I just wanted to address that. Yes, you made a very good point. The teachers this week were involved in a much more limited capacity as we move forward, and we begin next week with all teachers being engaged in Google Classroom with the students. There will be checklists of all of the things that need to be done on that day or for that week, and I think the principals will be able to talk to it a little bit more than with details based on each school. There will be reflection, there will be assessment, there will be feedback. So all of those things will be, as you might expect, through a regular classroom, will be available because teachers will be available on a daily basis. What you're seeing this week is kind of like an on-ramp of teachers and students kind of just, feeling their way. And it's an iterative process, and we're learning. And we're certainly going to have a very different experience once teachers are on each of their Google Classrooms on a daily basis. So the onus isn't so much, I understand what you're saying. The onus is more on the parents right now, and it should really be on the students and with the teachers collaborating.
So, but still with us home with them, because I think, not everybody is, but the majority of us are home. is there something like, is there a Monday morning, here are the assignments for the week, or something that the parents can at least have so that they can sort of know what's going on if they're still going to be in the house with the kids? Even if the kids are interacting with the teachers, I think the parents, if they're there, they're going to want to know what's going on.
Right. And I think that I'd really like to have my colleagues at the schools chime in, but there are some set weekly expectations, and part of the ramping up is going to have more of those details.
So
for
Fran, if I could just interrupt here.
Yes,
So I think one of the things that we're learning is that we are going to probably need to move at some point to a more robust learning management system that has a parent portal. Unfortunately, at this point, Google does not have that functionality. So you're right, Gretchen. Parents really need to go into this through the student's login to see the assignments for the day or the week. But it's something we're going to have to talk about because there are learning management systems such as Schoology that have a specific parent portal. Unfortunately, Google just doesn't have that right now. So parents are going to have to rely on, looking at what their child's assignments are through Google Classroom.
Okay.
Quick question. This is Kirsten Moore, parent. I just had a question about. As you're
Sorry, Kristen, I'm gonna interrupt you. The protocol for this board. This is not a meeting where the board's taking questions from the public. We can do that separately, or if you like, you can email questions to me. Right now, the protocol for the board is just to get an update from the administrators. Okay.
Yeah, Kirsten, I just want to reiterate that it's a special meeting of the board. So tonight the board can talk and we're able to hear things, but it's not our normal meeting where we would have a chance for public comment, and it's not sort of an interactive public hearing kind of thing. So as we move forward into future meetings and we can deal with the technology and how to organize all that, we will certainly try to do that, but unfortunately not tonight. So please keep your questions, via email. Please do not hesitate to email anybody on the staff with your questions. So thank you.
Great. So board members, before we move to the principals, and then we're going to give Andrea a chance to weigh in on the special services front. Does anyone else have follow-up question for Fran?
No, I think we'll get more of a what's it look like if we hear from the building sites. Or not the sites, sorry, the online virtual sites.
Yeah, so why don't we start? We'll start with Kathy, and then we'll just work our way up through the grades.
I'm trying to, oh, there we go. All right, just trying to take my mic off. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I first want to just reiterate again the thank yous, as everybody else did. My staff, my students, my parents have been incredible. I have to say that last Monday, so about a week and a half ago at around 11 o'clock, we had an idea that the schools might be closed. And within less than 2 days, my coaches and my interventionists got together and put together 4 weeks of plans for the kids, in addition to 800 go bags for all of them to take home. And thank goodness we sent them home Wednesday when we did. So there's no way we could have done any of that without my admin team. And I'm going to call them the Great Eight, the coaches and the interventionists, because they were hard at work for those 2 days. The other thing is, just because Kevin wanted us to start with some celebrations, I've had multiple emails from parents thanking us for the resources. One parent email was very complimentary about all of the information, and then very eager to turn her children back over to us as soon as possible. So we love hearing all of those things. As we went forward with our e-learning plan, kind of 2.0, as Fran said, we had 3 goals in mind. So the first goal was for the students to stay both physically healthy as well as emotionally healthy. The second goal was to make sure that things were developmentally appropriate. So I think our plan at Miller Driscoll for pre-K to 2 is going to sound a little bit different than other plans, just because of our use of Google Classroom and a little bit less technology than everyone else. And then our third goal was everywhere that we could keep things the same, we were going to try to keep things the same. So we sent out a weekly plan on Sunday to parents, and our goal over the next few weeks is to be able to enhance the plan to move instruction forward. So what will happen next week is parents will get, again, a weekly plan for preschool, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. And then embedded in those plans will be instructional videos. So there will be a few different kinds of videos. One video type will be by grade level. So we currently have our coaches, instructional coaches, doing academic videos by grade level. Reading, writing, and math will all be similar. It won't matter what class you're in, you'll get the same mini lesson. The specials teachers are also art, music, and PE, providing specials videos for the kids. And then other videos will be provided by the classroom teacher. So we tried to balance instruction and then being able to have videos from your own classroom teacher to be able, to kind of reassure kids, for them to be able to see their teachers' faces. I know some teachers are already sending some videos home, but there will be classroom specific things like a morning message eventually in there, or read aloud, and then specific assignments based on the mini lessons will come from the classroom teachers. So that's sort of where we are at this point. I think that our biggest barrier right now, we sent kids home with a bag of books. We have amazing, voracious readers at Miller Driscoll. And so pretty much after day one, a lot of the parents, especially of parents of the littler kids, were like, listen, we plowed through these books. We read them like 3 times. So we're looking at some different platforms to be able to get some leveled books to the kids. Obviously, most of our parents have a lot of books at home. They can do read alouds and things like that, but we're working with Fran to get leveled books to kindergarten and first grade. We already have reading A to Z for second. So, we look forward to enhancing as we go, and, we're kind of doing it on a week by week basis, and we'll share that with parents over the weekend.
Thanks, Kathy. Questions for Kathy?
Last week, you had talked about maybe it would be about an hour to an hour and a half a day, as sort of a normal, or an expectation. Has that worked out?
Well, I think with the resources we've sent home, I think that's worked out. I think next week it'll ramp up a little bit because, again, the kids will access a mini lesson, and then they'll have more activities to do. It is a little bit tricky from a developmentally appropriate perspective. Some kids can go online and they can post. So if a teacher posts an assignment or something to reply to on Padlet, some of our first and second graders can do that pretty easily and pretty independently. But then pre-K, K, and even some of our first graders have a little bit of a harder time with that. So we're trying to balance making things available for families that don't necessarily have to be done at a certain time. Because we also understand parents are working from home, and because our kids are little, you can't just, stick a 5-year-old in the dining room with a device and say like, okay, great, have fun with your teacher. There's going to be a lot more parent support that's needed. So we made the decision to, again, do the videos so that, parents could access them at different times. If they have multiple kids at home, they could do things at different times. So that's sort of that was our plan anyway.
Could you describe the overall parent reaction that you've been, either receiving messages or calls about? Are people sort of patient and understanding? Are they impatient? Is there something that is, we need to work faster on? Or, by and large, did what we anticipate sort of being able to get rolled out was fairly successful?
I think what I've received for the most part, and I think what the teachers have received, has been very positive. I think there are questions about the possibilities around things like live streaming. And so as a whole admin team, especially at our level, we sort of weighed the pros and cons to that. So I think those were some questions. I think if anything, people are being amazing. They're sharing resources. We rolled out a weekly plan, and people have already gone in and said, weekly is kind of hard, Kathy. So we took the whole plan and we revised it, and we were like, this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we're taking that, feedback and saying, so next week we'll give you the plan for the week, but it will be divided by day. Overall, I think everyone's been great and very patient and very understanding.
Okay. Any feedback from kids, or are parents reporting how their kids are taking to all this?
I think for some kids, like I said before, it's a little harder to post.
Yeah.
Teachers have posted things on Padlet and then said, please respond. And, again, with some of our littler kids, by the time they type out a sentence in there, that's pretty much, there you go. Writing is done for the day. But that has varied. So I think, overall, Ruth could probably give us some info. She's had she's been part of our plan.
Yeah, no, so as a mom with a kindergartner and a second grader, I think it's been tremendously helpful, the plan that came out. I like the idea of dividing it by the day versus the week. It makes it feel a little less overwhelming with the little ones. I like that there have been an easing into it. The kids are just getting used to coming to mom as someone not always as just mom, but also as someone who's objective and maybe working with them in a teacher-like capacity, which is a new dynamic. So we're figuring that out. I think all the moms that I have been in touch with have been supportive and patient, and there is a lot of PTA and community and other posting involvement going on of sharing resources and helping each other out. And I've just felt that the way the communication as a parent, I felt has been tremendous and positive. And I just, I think that it does need to be a way to balance it a little bit in terms of, you're saying what's developmentally appropriate, but also making sure our kids can, interact a little bit with their teachers or their friends, and whether that's a way of sharing pictures or posting photos or doing some type of projects in that respect. I'm sure there are people who have many clever ideas, and that as time goes on, we'll be able to figure that out. So it's just not so isolating for the little ones who kind of can have play dates and also are not kind of on FaceTime or texting their friends.
Right. So I think for next week, there will be opportunities too for even kids to, take a picture of, an artwork assignment that they've done and send it to the art teacher. I also want to say that we are working too with special education related services and interventionists with some short videos that they will also be pushing out to particular students depending upon their needs and whatever the objectives are, whether it's in an IEP or an intervention plan. And so that's all in the works too. I forgot to say that before. So.
No, and I think, and it's great. And you made a valid point, when they're under the age of 8, and it's very hard to say, go ahead and do this independently. So making sure that we are flexible in homes where both parents are working, and making sure that we're able to find time where children can do some things on their own and also can do things with their parents, and it's not necessarily tied to a specific schedule. It's good to hear.
Right. One of my teachers pointed out that, for some kids, this is actually helpful, because if you have a video of a mini lesson and you didn't quite get it all, you could just go back and watch it again and maybe watch it a third time. So, for some kids, this will be great.
Yeah. No, and I think we're all feeling like we are figuring this out as we go, as a school community and as a parental community. And there's going to be hiccups, and there's going to be highs, and there's going to be lows, but that also happens over summer vacation. So, we'll we're making it work. And I definitely, as a parent, I would just like to say, and as a taxpayer, I would like to say that I am you know, blown away by the effort. And it is appreciated.
Thank you. So I know Jen and I have tried to make our plans as similar as humanly possible. So there we go, Jenny. I'll just segue right to you and turn my mic off.
Yeah, Jen, Lawler, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, just real quick. Kathy, is there a way for, I know some of our younger families have an awful lot of other younger children. So I think some of them are finding it difficult to do their daily activities. Is there a way for you guys to prioritize, if they don't have time to do all of them, things that they should definitely do over others?
Sure, we can do that in next week's plan. Maybe we could do that because it will be organized by the day. So we can kind of, you know, bullet out priorities. Sure.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Dr. Falcone.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, perfect. All right, so Kathy and I basically started from the same platform. Like Kathy, we have lots to celebrate. Our team has been unbelievable. We had our LLC staff, our interventionists, our coaches have been unbelievable. And like Kathy, we started on Monday and somehow created what I think is an outstanding platform for kids to work through this week as we're kind of getting ready already for 2.0. And I can't thank myself. I keep using the word grateful for, you know, having the opportunity to work with such outstanding folks. So very, very thankful. I think that with the online learning, you know, we've been really careful to make sure that we're balancing expectations. You know, the academic, of course, we want to keep the learning going, and however, their whole body wellness right now, we're trying to pay attention to that as well. We've really worked on making sure that we're integrating movement breaks and mindfulness, and really been asking the teachers to use some of the ruler tools that we've been working on throughout the year. So I would say that's one of the cornerstones of what our current plan has been built around. We've also tried to create somewhat of a flexible day that has the, you know, standard-based curriculum integrated, but flexible enough that because it's asynchronous, that kids have the opportunity to do some work, and then teachers can check in and provide some feedback. And I think it's kind of, we know it's all going to ramp up a little bit next week, but I think this has been a really nice transition. Moving into, I guess, what everybody's calling the 2.0 version, really the shifts that we're going to make are that we're going to be creating a common schedule. We thought for grades 3, 4, 5. We're also going to be starting every day with a morning meeting where the schedule will kind of be gone over for every day. And that's where the teachers are going to be able to highlight different parts of the day, different learning opportunities, and really kind of set the students up for their learning ahead of them for the day. Still balancing the movement and the screen breaks, you know, everything that we're going to be expecting for learning activities. You know, there's the expectation that yes, there may be some kind of direct instruction, but that's going to be small in that the rest of it might be able to be done not looking at a screen. And so we're really keeping that in our mind as we're designing going forward. And I would say, you know, the next goal for moving forward is that we're starting to integrate more new learning, new units of study that are coming up. And we've got a really solid math plan that's already been kind of drafted and going through last minute touches here. And then we're thrilled to find out that Teachers College will be able to continue through some really exciting opportunities that Teachers College is working on, units that are ready to be implemented through an online system. So we're really excited about that tool and looking to see how we can integrate components of that. I mean, that's really it. I think that we definitely have some more structures in place. There's been lots of positive feedback from our families. Lots of little tech issues that everybody's working through. It's been fun. I never really got on a lot to the Cider Mill Facebook page, but it's been fun kind of being on that and really watching everybody be so empathetic to each other and humorous and trying to help each other out. And I'm just can't say enough about the community. Any questions I can answer for you guys? I know we have a couple parents here on the board, so they can give us some feedback.
Dr. Falcone, it's Mandy. Can you hear me?
Hi, Mandy.
Just thank you guys so much. And I'm just wondering, I know you went through and you said integrating the news studies and some is video and some is specific assignment. What in your brain does it look like a day in the life of the student? Can you just kind of talk about like the amount of hours that you're looking at and just like how much watching videos?
Yep. So we're gonna, for the first go around of it, and obviously we're gonna see kind of how it goes forward. I've had a lot of feedback from parents that people are still working. They kind of, a lot of families are looking for that day, maybe not a full day, but kind of almost like a suggested schedule for a day. And so we've probably got about 50% of the time kind of planned maybe academic work, but the rest of it is filled with special area projects and time where they're doing movement breaks. And so we've kind of taken a day and broken it up to be more fluid and not as heavy academic as maybe if there was a classroom teacher sitting in front of them. We are continuing to use, like Kathy explained, doing a lot of the pre-recorded video, but also having opportunities here and there, especially with smaller groups, to have kind of that live back and forth opportunity. I think as we figure out some of our tech tools that are available to us, one of the things that, and maybe it's just me because I'm a people person, I need to be surrounded by people. I think what's hard right now is I just feel like our students are missing the connection. And so, you know, even today, those of you who know, I was trying to post a video and it took me literally all day to post a video. And I think that once we could figure out, it's just because I'd never done it before, right? And so once we figure out how to get some of these technologies down, we'll be able to have better connections back and forth with our students and try to support that a little bit more.
Hey, Jen, just to elaborate on that. So you had posted and we were planning on sharing Friday a suggested schedule. So I think that was kind of Mandy's question. So parents will have the option, and I'm just, going to kind of make this up for the sake of the conversation. So from 8:30 to 9:30 will be maybe a reading video and a series of activities. 9:30 to 10 will be a movement break.
Yeah, we start off, I just pulled it up on my phone here. Just because I don't want to get off I can't go on my laptop because I'm on here on my laptop, but we have morning meeting, we move into like a read aloud. I'm just looking at a sample third grade schedule, but then they move into a special, either art, music, PE. They move into a break, then they have a reading writing block, lunch and free play. Then there's a math block. The academic, the reading, writing, math blocks are about 45 minutes long. They move into another special block. We really were strategic with how we were placing out the schedule. Then we move into word study, world language or small group, either intervention or resource room. And then we end the day around 2:30 with an exit slip or an afternoon meeting.
Awesome.
So that's kind of the draft. And then what we're doing is probably very familiar with the slide deck that we've been using now. And so the way that's going to be different is we really want to provide that flexibility of the week schedule. So what the teacher's going to do, since morning meeting will kick off the day, is the teacher will use a daily slide deck. And each kind of, usually if you were to walk in a classroom, you would kind of see the schedule kind of posted on the board. We'll use the slide deck as the schedule, and it'll have like some kind of like big ideas, learning targets that the kids can see at a glance, and then take them into the learning from that slide deck.
Awesome. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. The communication from the teachers and from you has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Everybody's been great.
So in that,
go ahead.
With any of the kids with intervention, is Andrea going to address that, or is that something that I just want to make sure that those kids that don't have IEPs or might do, like, just to make sure that they're all being taken care of as well? I'm not sure how that's happening.
Yeah, I think, Gretchen, if we can hold that question, I was going to give Andrea the floor so she can kind of take you through the whole special services piece after you got a taste of what was going to happen in each building.
Okay, that's fine.
Great,
Sorry.
thanks. Great. Other questions for Dr. Falcone?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we're going to turn Lauren Feltz's mic on here, and she can tell us what's happening at Middlebrook School.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here this evening. I'm going to join my colleagues in the praise of our staff and the amazing work that they've been doing. There's just been a real spirit of collaboration and can-do around getting a wonderful learning opportunity set up for all of our students. We, like all of our colleagues across the district, spent week one in a place of review, and we're in the process of going from review to new and moving from keeping skills from regressing in that 1.0 iteration of e-learning into continuing instruction and having kids proceed through their grade level curricula. So I think we have a really solid plan. We definitely prioritize student wellness as well as maintaining and leveraging the connections and warmer relationships that our students have with staff at Middlebrook. And then, of course, it's all about learning. We really benefit from the fact that our students are used to living in a Google Classroom environment. So a lot of the online interaction is stuff they're very, very comfortable with. Now, it's true that in the school building, when they're collaborating in Google Classroom, there's also a lot of interpersonal interactions that go along with that. But we do have kids who feel very empowered in the tools that they're using. And so that's wonderful. We're already seeing dividends from that. We have teams that are reporting out anecdotally, 80% of students that they can confirm that 80% of their students interacted with some of the content. We had on Monday, the very first day, not Monday. Yeah, on Monday, the very first day of the e-learning, we had one reading teacher who did 42 individual online reading conferences with the students. We have, examples of, I had one speech teacher who said that she sent individual emails to every single child and had lots of conversations on the phones with parents. So I think that with the support of the coaches and our coordinators who have just put in Herculean efforts, I think that everyone is using all of their considerable skills and creativity to bring about wonderful opportunities for Middlebrook kids. So going forward, a day in the life is going to be, I think, fairly predictable and structured for kids. We were looking to give them a school schedule, but we were really to try to fill about half of a typical day. And so in doing so, we have built an e-learning schedule where classes would actually be scheduled from 9:50 until 2. And there is a half an hour lunch break in the middle. And so students are going to be able to interact with almost all of the instructional content at their own pace and at their own time. So Fran would refer to that as asynchronous learning. Most of the lessons will have some sort of a video content where kids will interact, receive some direct instruction. Often there will be some sort of a connection, wellness check-in, just the warm, fuzzy side of maintaining relationships. And then there'll be a task that kids can engage in, sometimes independently, sometimes collaborating with other peers, which can be done both synchronously and asynchronously, depending on the format. So kids could actually, during class time, like a book club, could get together and actually be commenting in a document together. Or kids could be posting video or typed input on a resource that then they'll come back to and so that kids can do it in their own time. So kids will have 25-minute classes, and certainly the purpose of having the scheduled class is that it's an opportunity for kids to know that their teachers would be available to respond to them. That might be via email, that might be that they're collaborating in a document in Google Classroom. It could also be something like a web video chat so that kids are having a really personalized experience. It doesn't mean that every child has to be interacting with their teacher in real time during that 25-minute period every day, but they have the opportunity to. So students will have tasks that they can complete, and most of those tasks, most of our tasks at the secondary level, students work on over multiple days before turning in, because we want them to be doing sort of deep thinking about their work. There will be a daily task that students have to interact with and submit every day. And that is actually how we're going to track their attendance for the class. So it may be that they complete an assignment in Google Classroom. It may be that they respond to a Google form. It could be a wellness check-in where the teachers just sort of ask a question about how kids are feeling and things like that. So the way that we will work this is that students will have from when the class posts the task. So if I have social studies first period on Monday, I go in and I start working on my task, and I have until A period on Tuesday to submit it. And as long as I've interacted with that content and followed the directions before A period on Tuesday, then I would be considered that I had attended the class. To speak to Gretchen's earlier question, which I think is a really valid one, the assignments will be posted through Google Classroom, but the vast majority of my teams, I haven't checked to see if it's all of them, they're also using the homework page on their team website. And so often I think that the team homework page is reflecting, like as a cut and paste, the to-do list that's within Google Classroom. And so parents may want to try going to that as a resource to see sort of the child's to-do list. On my to-do list for my next meeting with our leadership team is to discuss making the daily check-in that we're using for attendance to be something that teachers will mark as received in PowerSchool, so that when parents go into PowerSchool to check, it won't be graded, but you'll see like a green tick mark or a check mark on it to indicate that the child has submitted their work. As an added sort of belt and suspenders to that, teams will be reviewing the frequency with which we have students not participating and not submitting those daily work samples. And we'll be following up if we see any patterns of students not participating. So you could imagine that if we certainly would want to reach out if we saw 3 in a row where a student wasn't participating, if the parent hasn't marked the student absent for the day, we'd want to reach out and support some participation in that. So students will have an abridged class time, but they'll see all of their classes on their regular schedule. So core classes, there'll be material posted for them and opportunities for them to interact with their teacher every day. The Stride complement will continue on its normal rotation. And teachers are working the full day, so they will be able to collaborate with each other, collaborate with special services and related service folks and each other to, and also use some of that time to be responding to student and giving feedback on student work. So we feel pretty confident about the plan going forward. Again, we've got a lot of wonderful resources that we can leverage, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I have a question.
Okay, so it's a combination of recordings, videos perhaps, and then posted work, and a chance on Google Classroom, Google Docs to work individually or collaborate with their peers. And then what is the real time? The real time is the teacher availability during each day at a certain point in time. Is that what I was hearing?
Right. So there's a 25-minute period for each class to sort of have direct access to their teachers. And the teachers can use that flexibly. They can, there is a functionality where they could be live streaming things to a small group of students. They could be doing conferencing with students. They could be, it could be an opportunity. So if we're in a reading class together and we're all in book clubs, it could be an opportunity where all of the kids who can, who family can make it work for them to attend synchronously that day could be collaborating in real time and having a discussion about the book that they're reading. But all of even when there is a plan that allows for synchronous collaboration, there will be an asynchronous way for kids who, can't attend during those 25 minutes that day to also interact with the content and successfully attend the class. Some teachers may put kids on something of a rotation so that, on Mondays, I know that I'm going to have an opportunity to engage in some speaking and listening in Spanish with my Spanish teacher. And that, in order to keep those groups small, that the teacher may rotate and see a different set of kids on a different day of the week. So I think I'd like to give our teachers some flexibility and empower them to make some thoughtful choices around how to use it.
So are there, I'm sorry, I was just checking to see if I wasn't on mute. So the 25-minute periods, are these something that are very similar to what they had? Or is this like more of a flexible, you've got 9:50 to 2 p.m. So
they're 25-minute periods. It's the equivalent of when we have an early dismissal for professional development. It's a very simple.
It's all dedicated.
The students have A through H period during that time.
Okay.
And during that time, they can get started on the tasks for the day. When the teacher is there, is online in order to, if they needed any clarification or if they needed to be pointed towards a different resource. There may be classes where the children actually complete the work in that amount of time, but certainly there will be some classes in certain disciplines where kids, one of the goals of the class is to develop independence and stamina, where they will continue on with some of that work outside of those 25 minutes.
Okay, understood.
So if the direct instruction video for my writing workshop class took 10 minutes one day, and I also did some sort of a ruler check-in, I would probably end up spending some additional time beyond the 25 minutes doing my independent writing for the day.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren, it's Mandy. My phone is blowing up with people asking questions, so I'm just going to get through a couple of them. Hi. Asking questions about accountability, grades. Is the scheduling by child, color, or class? And are there specific times that teachers are available? I don't know which of those you want to hit first.
I'm delighted to answer as many of those as I can. So the schedule, the whole school will be having A period at the same time. And so the child will be following their schedule for A period. So the goal being that the teacher's only responding to about 20 to 24 kids at a time, as opposed to responding to 100. So each child will be following their own schedule A through H period, and they'll rotate just like as if we were at the school building, the days 1 through 6 for the stride rotations. So there certainly will be accountability, and children will be graded on the mastery that they do or don't show of the content. I think that we are not trying to rush ourselves in defining exactly what the grading and assessment is going to look like. We would like to make sure that we're being thoughtful and reasonable and getting it right. And so we have every intention of being able to close out the third quarter and have report cards go as usual. And we expect that will happen on a very similar timeline to what we had originally projected. So that I responded to grading, to accountability, and to the schedule.
Yep, and the other question was teacher availability. So if 25 kids, is a teacher available only during that 25 minute for 25 kids approximately?
No. So if I know I want to talk to my reading teacher and I have her C period, I know that C period is that assigned time is a great chance that I'm going to be able to get my question answered then, or get feedback on my work then. But certainly, just like students can make appointments for extra help during a typical school day, kids who are stuck on something, want another pass at something, like Kathy said earlier, they can actually rewatch the content in this format, which is an interesting opportunity. But teachers are working full days. And so certainly, I want to be respectful of the fact that teachers developing the content or curating the content that they're sharing with students is a significant lift. So it's not that they're going to constantly be online with students, but they are certainly going to be spending part of their non-student facing time responding to students' work in terms of feedback on their work, but also responding to students' queries or requests for further explanation.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. That's it for right now.
My pleasure.
Lauren, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How do we know if a child is having difficulty?
So
usually if they're in class, the teachers can communicate with them,
Yep.
but is there a way for teachers to let parents know if the kids are falling behind?
Sure. You're talking about academic difficulty, not wellness difficulty.
Academics.
Okay, sure. So I think that sometimes, so certainly if the child can do the work is going to show us one thing. And I think that we need to be a little bit creative about the way we ask kids to show the work, right? So my music department is a great example of if the children record themselves singing or record themselves playing an assigned piece of music through Flipgrid and submit it. So that's a very authentic, kids can actually video themselves doing the math problem that they're stuck on, right? I want to actually see your process so I can see where your error is coming in. So looking at the success or not success that students are having with only one part of that. I also think giving kids the tools they need to reflect in terms of a rubric or a student-facing checklist of like, these are the things that we want you to feel confident at, and giving students the opportunity in a very emotionally safe way to say, this is the part that's hard for me, or this is the part that I'm stuck on. That's actually an approach and a process that our middle school kids are incredibly comfortable with. It's from an adult perspective, it's surprising how comfortable they are saying, this is the part that I know I don't do well on. And so one of the really great ways to know if a child's being successful is to ask the child. And that, I think, is one of the reflection questions that teachers may use as the check-in that we use for attendance is like, which part of this would you like me to give you more detail on? Or how would you rate yourself on your confidence in this process? So that from that, teachers could pull together small groups and assign additional instructional videos or do some small group instruction in a format like this, like Zoom, where they can actually interact with kids in real time.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else?
No, I think in the interest of time, we should probably get to the high school. And then obviously we have a lot of questions around support services. And of course, this is a work in progress, so we will keep cycling through these issues, continually. This is not the only night for them.
Thanks, everybody. And Mandy, let everybody know that the questions that they have about Middlebrook should be emailed right to me, and I will compile a frequently asked questions and send them out.
Hopefully they all do that right now. Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, so good evening to our Board of Education, and a special shout out to the Wilton High School Warrior Nation that's out there. We really, really miss our students and our families right now. It just hasn't been the same. So we're looking forward to getting back to some sense of normalcy. But I want to assure the high school clientele that we will be ready to launch Wilton High School e-learning 2.0 on Monday. My celebration would be the great work that our faculty and our school colleagues have been engaged in tirelessly over the last few days, and very interestingly, leveraging the very technologies that students will also be using. So it's been a good learning experience for us. We've been living on Google Meets, and it's been really, really humbling, but rewarding, and we will be ready. Today, we held some excellent planning sessions with all of our departments, and we as administrators were able to go in through Google Meets and check in with the teachers and the instructional leaders. So we are basically in full preparation mode to be ready to move students and staff forward with our learning, with our curriculum, and with our standards. Our teachers are really working concertedly to compact the curriculum, prioritize student learning outcomes and standards. And I'm just very proud of the faculty and the level of commitment, the dedication they've shown. And I think our families are really going to appreciate the efforts of our staff. So more good things to come. We at the high school had developed a very thoughtful e-learning plan. And essentially what I'd like to highlight for the board and the community are the 4 hallmarks of that plan. The first of which is just setting up e-learning norms for our constituents. We've emphasized to the teachers that it's almost like going back to really like day one of a different type of learning environment. So a couple of the norms, for example, I would cite are basically identifying and modeling the online learning behavior that we want to see and we want our students to exhibit. And then narrating these behaviors constantly and reinforcing them with students. And then yet another celebration. We're going to celebrate our rock star online learners. That's going to be part of what we're going to seek to do at the high school. So those are the norms. The second piece is just checking in with students in all classes each day to ensure that we're really, really focusing on the human element. As I said, moving learning forward is going to be important, but we want to do daily check-in with kids and just make sure that they're okay, academics, and be minds on. So we've got some mechanisms built in to do that as well. Thirdly, just establishing protocols on how to communicate with the class. And to Gretchen's earlier point, just to cite an example, we've been working on what we have described as basically a Wilton High School e-learning overview for the week that we're going to be asking all of our teachers to use. And we've been developing this even right up to the beginning of this board meeting, but this would contain announcements for the class, an attendance protocol we won't go into right now because we're still ironing it out, as Dr. Smith said. But what are the learning targets and the objectives that students are expected to do and know? And then what are the detailed instructions? So how will students be expected to complete assignments? What is due when? And then an opportunity and an area for special notes and what resources students need. So we want teachers to fill this out on a weekly basis, to post it up on Google Classroom, so families will be able to say, you know, can I take a look at the e-learning profile and hopefully partner with the students. We recognize there's a lot more independence at the high school level, and I think our students appreciate that, and our families appreciate that, and I think our teachers appreciate that. As we go into this new environment, I think there may be an increased level of involvement with our parent community that certainly will be welcome. Learning at the high school will be primarily asynchronous, so students and families can anticipate some type of recorded mini lessons or activities, but there will certainly at times be synchronous learning where and when appropriate. And some of the examples of the technology that the students and the teachers will be using include Google Meets, Screencastify, Nearpod to implement the learning. And again, I think there's been a lot of great learning on the part of the staff so far. Fran has implemented a professional learning model that I think is going to be helpful. We've reviewed that document with our faculty. We're also asking the faculty to look at this through, to some extent, also a UDL lens. So try to focus on multiple means of representation, and I've alluded to some of those, but students can anticipate text, videos, digital simulations, virtual tours, images, so a lot of different ways for information to be represented to students. And then just in terms of the engagement, verbal and online discussion and digital learning platforms, protected chat rooms, opportunities for students and teachers to interact. And then in terms of the actions and the expression, multiple ways of expression, different, physical models and sketches, some written text involved, students producing videos, slide performances. So that's kind of the instructional framework through which we're looking at this right now. And we've been working on this with the departments over the last few days, and we've got some really good shared agreements around this format. And then finally, number 4, and perhaps most importantly for students, what is the school day going to look like for our kids, and how are they going to experience it? What's going to be different on Monday with Wilton High School e-learning 2.0? So we are going to organize our days and weeks according to our alternating block schedule. So we felt that it was important to, have a sense of structure for the students, for the teachers, and the families. So what we're asking students and families to anticipate is, to the maximum extent possible, to be prepared to be minds-on during those assigned periods, while realizing there needs to be some flexibility in an asynchronous learning environment, and that students will have additional time to engage outside of class, and also that families may have some challenges. I would submit here, I just hope that all our kids and our families are well and are staying healthy and are going to be ready to engage in the schedule. So our current scheduling model, that may still be tweaked a little bit, we have 55-minute periods as opposed to 85-minute periods right now under the current alternating block schedule, meaning the regular alternating block schedule. And we're going to ask our students to engage during those times. That's a time when we can say our faculty will be committed to being available to our kids during those time periods, using the aforementioned electronic instructional modalities that I cited. The kids will be thrilled to know, our high school learners will be thrilled to know, that the class day, the school day, will not begin until 9:20. There will not be any disappointment there. We felt it was important to have our teachers have an opportunity for an hour at the beginning of the day for instructional effectiveness team meetings and preparation, and then an hour at the end of the day, so that we're on top of this, that we're prepared, and that we're really meeting all our student learning needs. So that really, I think, clearly depicts what the day will look like. Students will be able to look at the calendar on Monday. Here's my schedule through to Friday. These are the days when I have 3 classes. These are the days when I have 4 classes. And these are the times when I can anticipate that my teachers will be available to me. So, in closing, we cannot wait to get back to an environment where we get to see our kids again face to face, and our families and our faculty. It's been like a Wilton High School faculty love fest, getting everything back together and interacting through Google Meets. And with all this preparedness, we will be ready for Monday, and we're excited about it right now.
So Bob, the Monday is really when all the required class schedules, everything is being implemented. Anything that's happening this week is not required, is not part of the grading system.
No,
just trying to clarify.
We've been very clear, Gretchen, that this week, with the essentially 2 times that the teachers are available for interactions and meeting, the core area teachers, and then the 1 time for the elective areas, that was really, as you know, as we've said, about avoiding regression and just having a connection with kids. So to answer your question, those are not things that are going in the grade book. My understanding from a lot of faculty is that's gone quite well, but we need to, as the other colleagues alluded to, we're gonna relatively quickly shift the focus to a more rigorous learning environment with more advanced expectations. But I want to be clear, early on, it's about building relationships and getting students reoriented to this e-learning platform 2.0.
So again, the school hours start at 9:20, and maybe I missed it, but what time would they end? And is that the only time that students can reach out to their teachers?
Well, so the teachers have their IET and their prep period till 9:20, 8:20 to 9:20. So I'll just give you an example. So, block 1, let's say day 1, from 9:20 to 10:15. So these are 55-minute periods again. And that is the time when we're asking our teachers to be available. We're imploring the Wilton High School parent community to structure kids' days in any way they can to say we're going to get the vast majority of our students who are locked in and are ready to engage with the teachers during that time period. But there are also, as our students know, our families might not know it as well, there are also times when teachers are free. So we do anticipate that, although that is prep time, that our teachers, like they always do, will make themselves available to students for whether they require additional support or additional communication. I'm confident that our teachers, based on everything I've seen and the way we've structured this, our kids will have our teachers available to them, ready to support their learning.
And can
Okay.
you clarify a little bit with this schedule? I know that some of like the lab classes or other classes have like mini classes or additional 45-minute periods that go along with them. The schedule going to allow for those to continue, or are we just going to do abbreviated going forward?
We're still ironing out some of the minis, but we are committed to trying to making those work. For example, in the math classes, and we believe we'll be able to do so. This is still somewhat iterative right now, but again, the framework of the schedule and the idea that students can look at the week and know, not unlike during the regular school day environment, this is when my classes are meeting and this is when my teachers are going to be available. I think that framework is going to provide some really good structure for our kids and our families and our staff.
Bob, do you know anything about AP exams, if they're going to happen, and will our students be prepared to take them?
We will be able to prepare the students to take them. What we've heard from the college board thus far is that there may be some flexibility depending on the amount of time that we're out, and probably the amount of time that schools are out across the country and the world, that there may be some flexibility to use the later testing time. So 1 week earlier, 1 week later or 2 weeks later. We also just got an update. I don't know enough about this yet, about the possibility, and again, there are no promises coming from me about the possibility of somehow testing from home. So I would say the College Board is exploring different options, and we'll probably have more forthcoming information in the next days and weeks.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Bob, but to the extent that all districts statewide and even nationwide are in exactly the same boat, my hope is that the College Board is coming up with creative plans so that nobody is punished in any way, that we're as flexible as possible. And to the extent that boards of ed or state departments can go kind of make that known to College Board. Right now, our most important thing is the health and safety of our communities. We do not need unnecessary stress. Things are not normal. And I think that to the extent that our board, or at least our State Department of Education, can communicate that to College Board, this is not a normal time. And the last thing we need to worry about is getting everybody together in the same room at the same time to take an AP test. We're all rethinking everything, and that's got to include College Board. So I'm hoping that, that parents and families and kids don't stress themselves out. We're all in this together, and we'll do whatever we can to push for as much flexibility and understanding. And I'd like to think the College Board gets it. And I'm hoping that we're going to see a communication from them fairly soon.
Yeah, Deborah, if I may kind of follow along your point, it is a stressful time. And I'm wondering, and this is probably directed more at the high school than the other schools, for juniors and seniors. And maybe Maria, there's been some conversation, I don't know, about the establishment or creation in some way, shape, or form of a helpline for students, not academically, but emotionally, who may be going through and incurring or suffering from some unusual, because this is an unusual time, some unusual stressful needs that we could reach out somehow, or they could reach out to us if they have problems or they're having issues outside of the academic world.
Glenn, we do have the tools that we've already implemented. Gaggle Speak Up for one. So not only can students reach out, but if their peers are aware that somebody's struggling, they could reach out too.
Maybe a reminder that those things are available in some way, in some positive way, shape, or form.
Sure, of course. Yeah, it's a great recommendation.
I would add, Glenn, that our school counseling team worked concertedly today to develop a document to achieve just that goal.
Okay.
Check in with all of our students to be able to check in, and it's got opportunities for kids to give feedback to both the school counseling staff and the school counseling staff and the mental health staff, under Pam Scott's leadership. And we reviewed that document this morning, and it's going to be a good communication mechanism between the school and the student. So that's another avenue that will be front and center, because again, we want to, student health and wellness right now is paramount, and we want to make sure that our kids are ready. We recognize that it's an anxious time for them, and we want to meet all of their needs, including the social emotional needs.
All right, well, that's great to hear, because I mean, it sounds as though from all of you, all of our principals, that the academic side has been well thought out, well planned, it's underway, we're doing all the right things. But there's a whole group of our students, and as I said before, perhaps I think more of the juniors and seniors, where this is the end for them, or getting to be the end. And it's not usual. It's very different, and very different from what they expected it to be. And they may be the ones that are most vulnerable. And so to the extent we can make all those resources known to them and highlight and remind them, I think it would be a great thing to do. Okay, that's all.
Right, and that's why I keep thanking the Wilton Youth Council for reminding us, and I know our staff already knows this and has promulgated all these messages. You heard them from all the principals, is that there is a wellness and a health and wellness, mental health side to all of this. Probably will be amplified with Andrea's talk, but yeah, I think we're all aware that this has to be a balance between the health and concern for the stress that kids are going through, and families, for heaven's sakes. And so that's why I get a little sensitive when I hear people being overly anxious about assessments. I think we need to really think, carefully and slowly about that. Let's not add stress where we don't need it right now.
Hey, Deb, it's Mandy. I agree with that completely, but I am getting a bunch of questions about how the students will be assessed. And I know that is exactly not what we were just talking about, but Bob, could you just review that for those who are interested?
I'm going to take that question if you don't mind, because
okay, great, Kevin.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to ask everyone to do is just sit tight. We're in a complete new paradigm, and so we're proceeding, I think, in priority order of how we address some of the issues. So starting with the educational infrastructure, making sure that we have the tools, we have the resources. The admin team's been meeting daily, and we keep revisiting this question. There's been such a scramble to get things ready for next week that I told them today, we're just going to table this question for a day or two. So we'll come back to you, and we'll let you know very specifically how we intend to assess, and also how we intend to manage attendance as well.
Great.
The end date for your day, it's going to start at 9:20, but when is it ending?
For the school day certainly ends at 2:50 overall, but the student end time is 1:50.
Okay.
So there'll be essentially 4 55-minute blocks.
Great. Other questions for Bob? Otherwise, we'll move on to Andrea.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. The special education department, I can't say enough about what's been happening. Just to reiterate the level of commitment and energy that the special education, student services, related services folks have been engaging in over the past few days to pull together not only a program of study that will support the students who will be engaging in the programs you've already heard about from each of the 4 schools, but also in wrapping around our most complex students who require a level of direct instruction that won't always work asynchronously. So there's been a great deal of creative work being done with our staff of special education teachers, speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, our psychologists and social workers have really taken a deep dive into a lot of different opportunities and are going to push forward both synchronous instruction, We've identified a platform for what in the vernacular is called teletherapy, where folks are going to be doing actual direct therapy with students through the computer, as well as asynchronous work and supporting the general education classroom. We expect to be up and running. We had to do some work on the digital privacy side before we can kind of roll out the training. So this is taking a few more days to get the training to the teachers, and then also the training to the primary caregivers at home. So we'll be rolling out a full panoply of related services to be done synchronously with staff, from behavioral mental health to speech and language, OT, direct instruction from special education teachers on a wide variety of goals and objectives that the students have in their IEPs. Those services will be able to be done both in small group and in individual services according to the child's IEP. So we'll be able to get that rolling. Our goal right now is to be rolling with those services on March 30th. Between now and then, there are a number of different things happening with students with disabilities. So it's not that they're not receiving any with daily schedules for individual students and activities. We have opportunities for connection to families and connection to students. People have been using Google Meets and other avenues to connect with their students and with their families, to check in, to make sure they're up and running with the technologies, with their devices, so that we can help the families develop an individualized schedule of instruction over the next week or so. So we're excited about the opportunities going on. The teachers have been amazing. The related services staff have been unbelievably creative in pulling together opportunities for their students. And all of those folks are also collaborators in the general education environments, making sure that their students who are participating in the general education environments are receiving the supports they need as we roll out the e-learning plan 2.0. So from an instructional side, I am growing increasingly confident every day that we're going to meet the needs of each and every learner. The new platform we found, I think, is one that is going to change the game from what I thought it was going to be 2 or 3 days ago to what I think it will be able to accomplish now. So I'm excited about that, and we'll be getting more information out into the field to the parents as we move forward with the platform. With that being said, Glenn, I appreciate you talking about the social and emotional needs of our students, and also, Debbie, the social and emotional needs of our families. This is a heavy lift. As all of you who have your children home know, that I've seen some of the humorous accounts of families out on Facebook talking about what it's like to be your child's teacher and working from home and living a family life. So we are going to be very sensitive to that and work with families to make sure each and every family gets the support that they need from us. In some cases, we'll be having virtual team meetings with families and staff to make sure we help them set up the structures they need and respond to their feedback when things aren't working, so that we can get involved with them and help them make sure that this works to the greatest extent possible for each and every student and family. So I could go on for decades about what this is going to look like, but I'll kind of leave it there for you and let you ask questions.
Can you just remind us how many students you are seeking to provide this kind of virtual support, from maybe just a little to a lot, but how many kids, just remind us how many students we're talking about.
We have about 600 students with IEPs who have individual programs of service from preschool through age 21. We also have an obligation for our students who are in current outplacements. So we have some obligations to attempt to work with those families as well, because not all of the outplaced schools are providing any e-learning opportunities. So we have some work to do to make sure that each and every one of those students is also getting an educational experience that's meaningful.
Okay. Thank you. And then you alluded to a new platform, and this probably question goes to everybody, all the principals, and Fran. What other, do you anticipate a lot more resources in terms of purchasing? We had talked about needing funds perhaps to cover some of the materials or platforms or programs or connectivity or whatever it is. Do you anticipate that we've got most of what we need, or we'll be needing a whole lot more stuff?
So if I can answer that question partly.
We have most of it. We're going to need, the platform has a cost, but the bulk of that cost is in training of staff and in the platform itself. It's a proprietary platform, which has a tremendous amount of resource embedded in it for the teachers and for the students and families. So that will have a cost to bear. The big cost to bear in special education is going to come when this process resolves and we begin to engage in taking a look at the compensatory education obligations that we will have to kids with disabilities.
So the most obvious immediate thing might be looking at our extended school year, our summer program for special needs students, and anticipating that that might grow a lot. Am I right about that or wrong about that?
You're right about that. The staffing will need, it will likely, based on today, it will grow in terms of how much service we'll need to provide, how many students will be engaged with us. That'll have staffing implications. Yes.
So if I can just add on that question about resources and tools that we've added or we are adding, because they all have cost implications or may not. We added, for example, filtering. We have Gaggle, which filters all of our Google Suite, which is, primarily what we have been using with our students. But since we've added, you've heard a lot about the Hangout Meets that our teachers have been using in the last few days and the administrators have been using. As we use that with students, we felt that it would be our responsibility to actually have filtering for that. So we've put that into place. I've got a couple of other things that we're adding, but the biggest cost that I can see right now is the materials that we will need to ensure that the curriculum can continue in the realm that it has, because we had a lot of physical materials that we're now needing to buy e-resources for. So that might be ebooks, it might be through Overdrive, audiobooks, it might be through Follett and some of those kind of digital resources. And we are working right now very closely with the coordinators and the coaches. I've got some Google Hangouts tomorrow to take a look at what those units are and what the requirements are. And we are going to have a plan in terms of what we will need in terms of funding for that.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew, just a quick question about students that the teletherapy is not going to work for. What's the workaround for those kids?
Well, the platform we've chosen, we've been working with them. Their clinicians will be supporting us with our kids who are struggling with the platform. But the platform itself is suited for a wide variety of learners, including learners who use augmentative communication devices, learners with significant cognitive disabilities. It really is very well suited to a wide variety of learners. So obviously as we roll this out, we're going to gain feedback from from our families in terms of what's working and what's not. But I anticipate that the vast majority of our learners are going to benefit from the platform itself. And those who don't will have to work around. This platform is far more robust than, you know, a Google Hangout. This has screen casting, or I don't know all the technical terms, screen mirroring capabilities, so that it's actually like a virtual tabletop where the teacher can engage with the student's screen. So there is both and video and live interaction. So it's about as close as you can get in a virtual environment, in a socially distanced environment, to engage with the student. The only thing the therapist can't do is touch the student.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Right, and you and I both know that, you know, there are times when that's necessary, but it's the only thing, and in a socially distant environment, that's out.
Okay. And so for those students, would we, and I'm not holding you to this, but would we possibly increase the amount of therapy they received over the summer, or how do we help?
We'll be addressing the compensatory education piece with each individual student when this resolves and we get back to a learning environment. It may be increased services over the summer. It may also be increased services that spread throughout next year.
Right.
Depending on how much service is missed. Again, you know, it's going to be an issue now. It's also going to be an issue later, whether or not, you know, how much service can you actually benefit from in any one day, right? Operationally, these are young people who need to have a life too. So we're going to be working with the families, but when this is all over, there will be a mountain to climb for all of us to understand the impact of this, and then also the compensatory education issues that may arise. But that'll be done individually.
Right, and I think on some level, it's our non-IEP students also that we'll all be trying to figure out.
Yes.
And making sure there weren't learning gaps and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Andrea, can you talk a little bit about, has there been any mandate or anything from the state around PPTs and annuals, or how you're managing those?
I'm sorry, who? Oh, right now I we have a little short moratorium on PPTs to allow the staff to focus in on getting the e-learning plan 2.0 up and running. We are anticipating some feedback from the State Department of Education this week on how we are handling some of the required meetings in terms of the annual reviews, the triennial reviews. Triennial testing is on hold because our psychologists and teachers can't do the testing. We don't have the availability to sit down at the table and do the testing. So there are a number of things we're anticipating right now. I've said we're not having PPTs this week or next week, but I anticipate in the following week out we will be rescheduling PPTs unless something very drastic happens at the State Department level, and then we'll be beginning to do the meetings again. But the teachers right now need to be focused in on getting instruction up and running, and remembering that every time we have a PPT, we're pulling all teachers on that team, including the general ed teachers and administrators, away from the instructional work that's happening in the e-learning environment. So, we're hoping to get some further clarification from the state about whether or not we'll have some easing of the rules on getting the annual reviews and triennial reviews done. But if not, we'll be back up and running and pulling staff to do that work within the next week or so.
Okay. I'm looking at the time. And we've covered a tremendous amount of material, and it is almost 9 o'clock, and we still have a couple of other outstanding issues to address. So obviously this is a work in progress. I personally am totally impressed with our team here in terms of being able to think about mental health, to think about adding normalcy, through predictable schedules, through communication, through calendars in advance. And you've spoken very thoughtfully, all of you, to me anyway, about the sort of the transition between keeping something going into now we're getting into the new learning. So the transitions have been, I think, well planned. It's helpful to have, the more and more details you can hear from our questions. We really, want to get a handle of what that looks like for our kids. And I'm sure parents are thinking, and what's that going to mean for our families? So it is a work in progress, but I think it's really impressive that we've gone through almost week 1, and we're more, we'll be definitely ready for 2.0 or week 2 of this. So thank you. So I really don't mean to cut things off, but I also want to talk a little bit about the agenda items remaining, which is the financial piece and the school calendar piece. And I just realized I can look at the number of participants here as in 74. I think it was higher earlier on, so we are losing our audience too. So, but anyway, I want to thank everybody for attending so long. And I'm also cognizant that we need to let our staff who've already put in 12, 14, 16-hour days, that we need to let them go and do their work. So could we move on fairly expeditiously to the financial piece and then the school calendar piece? On the school calendar, I'll tell you right now, if people are trying to hang on, there will be no answers tonight. We're just going to talk about what the questions are. All right, so finances.
Sure. I'm not sure if Ann Lenz is on, but here's.
I'm on.
Oh, you are? Great.
I'm on. Yeah, I made it on. Kevin, I'll keep it brief because you had mentioned this earlier in the call that at the last meeting we assigned $160,000 that we had frozen for what we thought. Those expenditures right now are going to be allocated for the items, certainly for some of the items that Fran has already put in, the gaggle, the follett, those are coming in already. So as we see any other savings, we're going to put that in there. So as the requests are coming in and we get an idea of what we're looking at for all the digital and different resources that are needed to make sure that we cover it.
Okay. And then maybe this is a Maria and an Ann question is as we work through contracts and our employees, can you talk about maybe some of the issues we need to address, and obviously not detail tonight, but some of the sort of big questions or big approaches that you'll have to decide on?
Sure. Well, good evening, everyone. We have, first of all, a tremendous staff that has mobilized so quickly in, just an unprecedented situation. And we are fortunate to have so many people working virtually, literally since day one. Our administrators, our teaching staff, our custodians certainly are heroes in this, in their work to clean the buildings. And many of our secretaries have been working truly since the closure as well, supporting us behind the scenes. It's important to remember that we have collective bargaining agreements with many of these groups. Those are contractual agreements for a certain number of days of work and a certain pay over the course of the year. So we're currently working with each of those unions to talk about this change in working conditions. We will likely need memoranda of understanding for each of those groups because we have a change in working conditions for them. It's our desire certainly to support those groups, to engage them in the work that we have ahead of us. They are our employees because they have a lot to contribute to the work that we do. It truly is a community effort. There's not just one group that can do this work alone. We really believe and know that we need everyone to do this work. And so currently we're looking at how we can engage some of the groups that haven't necessarily been able to participate since day one in doing the work. Just as recently as today, I was communicating with the paraprofessional union about how we can engage in their efforts to help support this work, and we have a lot of creative out-of-the-box thinking. So again, it's our desire to get everyone as an active participant in this work. Naturally, there are people that are concerned about what might happen if this is an extended closure and we're looking at reduced work hours for people. I think some of the people that are most obviously impacted are going to be our substitute teachers, some of our hourly workers, like people working in the cafeteria, our cafeteria supervisors, some of our staff members who work for continuing education for our child care. And, in those cases when people are facing loss of pay, we reach out to them and let them know what their rights are for applying for unemployment, not because they're unemployed, but because the Department of Labor is coming out with new guidance that is specific to COVID-19 in perhaps giving benefits to people who lose pay, who don't necessarily lose their jobs, but are facing a loss of pay as a result of, this pandemic that we're facing right now. So I think, it's evolving, but we just have a tremendous staff, and people are creative, out-of-the-box thinkers, and they're willing to pitch in whatever ways are necessary. So I think this is just going to be an ongoing process of us communicating to you and to our parent community about how people are getting the work done, on behalf of our students. And, we'll just see how things evolve in the weeks to come.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Anne or around finances? And I guess, Anne, my question would be if special services costs, we can talk about this later, but just an issue to think about is just the timing, which budget year should we anticipate increased costs for special services? Some this year, a lot next year. How can we juggle some things earlier? I mean, is there something we can do about next year's budget to offload some things into this year's budget? All of those kinds of issues that we won't have time for tonight. We don't even know yet. But we still have to keep an eye on the fact that we're juggling two years' budgets and how best to manage that. And I know Kevin's already losing sleep over it, but we'll be all right. I like to think.
Anne, do you want to weigh in on that?
Already on the table. Sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that Kevin, as we've talked about, that's on the table of how do we manage that going forward, and how do we manage any savings that we have to be able to have that reserve in place for ourselves.
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at, it's a little premature, but we're looking at lines. We're going into, other contracts to see, where we don't have to spend money. We need to anticipate some, cost, ESY, et cetera. But I think as time rolls on here, we'll have a clearer picture, and we just ask for a little patience and know that we're on top of it.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And then it sounds like because we had authorized up to $160,000 at our last meeting, that we at least have those funds free enough within this year's budget to cover the materials and at least some of special needs services that come up. So we have some working thing towards this situation. Okay, the last piece is the school calendar, and again, these are questions, but I know people have come in with creative ideas about thinking around April break and also graduation. And I think, Kevin, you've already made it really clear that the date of graduation remains the same.
Yes, would you like me to repeat that? We're keeping the
same.
Unless you all want to vote to change it,
No.
We are keeping the currently approved date for graduation. What's unknown is what graduation will look like.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, understood. So I just think it's at least we can know the date is there and we're not changing it.
Yes.
And again, that's great. Okay.
So spring break.
And April break, what about, I know Mandy had some ideas. I'm sure, every parent has preferences. How are we managing how to calendar that, or how to use it?
Let me just give you some thoughts. Here's my just immediate recommendation is this, that we wait to make a decision. Let's give it another week. Things have been unfolding so rapidly. It's really just hard to know. So I think if we can sit tight for a little bit, that's the best thing we can do at the moment. And then when we come back together to talk about it, we have a few options to contemplate. One is we can do nothing and keep it as it is. Another option would be to cancel it entirely, work through the spring break, and end the school year a week sooner. And then a third and fourth option would be either to move it earlier or to move it later. One rationale for moving it earlier would be to think that we might be able to get back to school and then have more time in traditional time. I'm not entirely clear on all the reasons why we want to move it later, but if there was a reason we needed to, continue to deep clean the buildings or do some additional prep work before it opened, that could be on the table as well. So kind of thinking about all those things. The other piece that I'm interested in knowing, and I want to wait another week before we even ask the question, is what are families' plans? So, typically we try to plan and publish these calendars a year or more in advance because we know that people save money and plan their vacations well ahead of schedule. So I want to get some input from our families, and then I'll share that with the board, and I'll come back to you, with a recommendation that we can discuss.
Okay, that makes sense. And again, I just want to make sure people understand that we're thinking about it, and we want to get some more feedback, and doing this, so we can talk about it more next week. And speaking about next week, that is a regularly scheduled board meeting. I'm assuming that we will be able to have it virtually again, and we'll need to figure out some of the technology around, hopefully allowing some public comment areas. So are there any other things that we did not cover tonight on the agenda that important points that we have not covered, Kevin?
Deb,
yeah,
I just wanted to
make one more point, Mandy. Hold on one sec, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that we talked through a lot of details tonight. Our intention is by Friday to send out another really detailed communication about the e-learning plan, both with the kind of district considerations and then by school as well. So we'll have kind of a parent-student manual and then a teacher manual that's being developed as we speak, and we'll have that ready to go day after tomorrow.
Mandy.
Thanks.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say is everyone who's on this, thanks everyone for joining. And regarding the spring break, I really encourage everyone to reach out to BOE@wiltonps.org just to give us your ideas and thoughts so that we can hear from the community and not just the 6 of us. That's it.
Jen, you were going to say something?
Kevin answered it already.
Oh, okay. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. Well, again, I know I speak for all 6 of us. Our sincere thanks to the yeoman's work that that all of the teachers, principals, Kevin, his team. It's been amazing, and thanks as well to the regular communication. I think it's helped. It's been so helpful, Maria, that every single day we get some sort of an update, even if there's not lots of new news. There's always a touchstone for us every day. So that's much appreciated, I'm sure, by our whole community. So obviously this is all a work in progress. It's all going to change, keep changing. But thanks everybody for your perseverance and patience and flexibility. And we'll be back on the same channel next week. All right.
Thank you so much.
This meeting is now adjourned, and thanks to all the public who stuck with it, and it will be posted for those who want to come back and look at it or didn't get a chance tonight. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Debbie.